Dr. Benjamin Spock, Opening Doors, Intuitive Parenting. Benjamin McLean Spock was born in New Haven, Connecticut on May 2, 1903, to an affluent New England family. He was the oldest of 6 children, born to Benjamin Ives Spock and Mildred Louise Spock. As the oldest child, he often helped take care of his younger siblings. In later years, he reflected on his strict childhood by saying, "I love to dance in order to liberate myself from my puritanical upbringing." Spock attended private preparatory schools as a youngster. He was married to Jane Davenport Cheney, his college sweetheart, in 1927. The couple had 2 sons, Michael and John. Jane Cheney assisted with the writing and research of his highly successful book, Common Sense, Book of Baby and Child Care. Jane and Benjamin Spock were divorced in 1976. Spock was married to Mary Morgan Spock in 1976. He would spend the remainder of his life with Mary. Spock died on March 15, 1998, at the age of 94. In 1921, Spock enrolled in Yale University, his father's alma mater, where he studied history and English literature. He was inducted into the Eta chapter of Zeta Psi and then into the Senior Society, Scroll and Key. Spock attended Yale School of Medicine from 1925 through 1927, transferring to Columbia University's College of Physicians and Surgeons in New York to finish his degree. Spock graduated from Columbia University at the top of his class in 1929 with a degree in medicine. In 1924, while at Yale, Spock was part of the all-Yale men's 8 rowing team at the Paris Olympics. They were captained by James Rockefeller, who later became president of Citigroup. They competed on the Seine, a major river in France. They won the gold medal that year. From an early age, Spock knew he wanted to work with children who have their whole lives ahead of them. He believed that the medical community was too focused on the physical side of childhood development and not on the psychological side. Spock recognized the importance of physical development as well as mental development in children. He began to specialize in psychiatry in 1929 after receiving his Doctor of Medicine degree in pediatrics. He became a board-certified pediatrician in 1937. In 1931, during the height of the Depression, Spock began a 1-year internship in pediatric training at the New York Nursery and Child's Hospital. He would go on to treat hundreds of patients while there. Most of the families lived locally in slums, suffering from poor health, malnutrition, and neglect. While there, Spock developed a bond with the mothers by answering their questions in a down-to-earth way. His demeanor and way of reassuring the parents worked to calm the fears of many who could not afford to seek private medical advice. Spock recognized that more parents were asking him questions related to their child's psychology instead of a medical situation, and he began to agree with Sigmund Freud's insights to encourage childhood development rather than the rigid, harsh approach of his own parents. It's during the 1930s that Spock begins to apply Sigmund Freud's theories on psychology to child-rearing advice on matters such as breastfeeding, toilet training, and sexual development. He focused on what he called intuitive parenting, and his theories were closely aligned with those of Sigmund Freud and Tom Dewey. His interests began to include the hope of changing America's child-raising practices. Prior to Dr. Spock, society believed in a very rigid and structured approach when dealing with children. John B. Watson warned, "When you are tempted to pet your child, remember that mother love is a dangerous instrument, an instrument which may inflict a never-healing wound, a wound which may make infancy unhappy, adolescence a nightmare, an instrument which may wreck your adult son or daughter's vocational future and their chances for marital happiness. Never hug and kiss them. Never let them sit on your lap. If you must, kiss them once on the forehead when they say good night. Shake hands with them in the morning. Spock questioned those methods of raising children and began to focus on his own theories. Although he is credited with introducing many ideas throughout his long career, he is most recognized for intuitive parenting, a complete and common-sense approach to parenting, the practical application of experts such as Sigmund Freud and Thomas Dewey, love and flexibility versus routines and rules. His materials were always relevant and up to date. The key elements of Spock's theories were introduced to an entire generation of parents and encouraged them to follow their own intuitions while raising their children. When you consider Spock's terribly strict upbringing, how his university years were spent during World War II, and that his first years practicing medicine were during the Depression, it is no wonder he felt the need to revolutionize how children were raised. His compassionate understanding that parents wanted to be more secure in their own beliefs of parenting truly changed how an entire generation, and the generations that followed, would raise their families. Benjamin Spock was instrumental in helping to reassure the baby boomer parents that yes, hugging and kissing your child is a good thing. Spock was interested in actually figuring out how children grow emotionally and develop into mature, loving adults. His calm and gentle approach in explaining this and discussing how to raise children took the fear away for many young families. In its place, there was a new sense of confidence and pride. Penelope Leach, a British child care expert, was quoted as saying, "He was the first to say babies were human beings too. That was very much before his time." Miss Leach is the author of the popular Baby and Child, first published in 1977. The theory of behaviorism is based on the idea that a parent's job to decide on the goals of their children. The method of achieving this was by setting strict sets of guidelines that were to be followed regardless of the desires of the child. It was believed that a child was not capable of making sensible decisions on their own, basically saying, free will and happiness, it's not all it's cracked up to be. The theory of humanism is based on the idea that it was a parent's job to set examples and guide their child to make their own decision. Each child is a unique individual and should be accepted for who they are. Reassurance, unconditional love, and acceptance were the basic beliefs that were strongly encouraged in order to help each child reach their full potential. In 1943, Spock began writing the Common Sense Book of Baby and Child Care. He was serving in the Navy during World War II at the time when he finished writing this book. In 1946, Spock published the first version of his most popular and controversial book, The Common Sense Book of Baby and Child Care. The book sold over 50 million copies, had 16 revisions, and has been published in 42 languages. It remains a popular book even after his death in 1998. In this book, Spock focuses on a new way of thinking. He was an advocate of trusting yourself and your child, following your own intuition, and treating children as a unique individual and enjoying the process of parenting. His book contradicted the rigid conformity of the day. He told mothers and fathers that they should relax, treat their children as individuals, and have fun. And unlike other experts who were formal and doctorial, Spock was informal, friendly, approachable. Trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. Spock's thoughts on how to raise children emphasized a more down-to-earth, practical way to bring up children. The book is over 1,000 pages long, and has answers to the everyday questions parents have about their child's development. Spock was the first pediatrician to study psychoanalysis to try to understand the needs of children and family dynamics. His ideas about child care influenced several generations of parents to be more flexible and affectionate with their children and to treat them as individuals. Dr. Spock's theories have had a lasting impact on childhood programs in many ways. He has always spoken to the heart of the parent. He has a genuine love for children that cannot be overlooked or faked. His practical, common-sense methods are as easy to understand and put into practice as they were in 1946. He was dedicated to helping others see what a wonderful gift children are, to have and to love. He recognized that every generation faces unique issues that need to be addressed, and he wasn't afraid to change his material to accommodate social and medical concerns. Let me leave you with this thought. In an era that believed children should be seen and not heard, or spare the rod, spoil a child, Dr. Benjamin Spock opened the doorway to a new way to raise a family, a newer, more loving way for parents and children to love and grow together. His simple words still resonate today. As people, we have never regressed to the old standards, and I hope we never will.